Namaskar and welcome. This is DD Dialogue on Union Budget, Amrit Kal Budget. Amidst a rather bleak global economic environment, India continues to be a shining spot, and perhaps therefore the Union Budget, the road ahead becomes very, very important. And it's wonderful to have among us someone who has been the architect of the budget, someone who is known to have steered India's economy through the turbulent period of the pandemic, and now seeks to take it forward on a growth trajectory. Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ma'am, warm welcome to this conversation, ma'am. So the way we hope to move forward is there'll be a brief conversation between us, and then we'll keep the stage open for some questions from the audience members. And it's an August gathering. There are leaders of the industry, entrepreneurs, and members of media who are going to be putting the questions, ma'am. When the economic survey came up, ma'am, it made a profound statement about how the recovery period from the pandemic is over now. It must mean a lot for the populations who've gone through the pandemic, ma'am. What were then your priorities when we were giving a final shape to this budget?
Well, the priority is to keep the growth momentum as it is, and also to make sure that we further support measures for sustaining growth. So growth is the one focus. But within that, of course, even as we do that, to be inclusive, to make sure that those who desperately need help or those who need to be supported, we will support them. And be conscious of the fact that challenges which are extraneous to India, external challenges, will have to be kept in mind. We should be ready for any unpredictable events from outside of our border. Economic challenges which is even today prevalent in terms of the fuel and fertilizer and also food. Fertilizer is coming down a bit, but even then it is a factor which is beyond us. These were the primary concerns.
Right, and when Prime Minister spoke on the budget, ma'am, the very first statement he made was how the budget is meant for the deprived sections. Now, as the pandemic and its impact gets over, what does the road ahead then look for this deprived, weaker sections? What does the budget offer to give them wings to go forward?
Well, to start with, it gives the free food for one more year. And that is to ensure that no fluctuation can affect basic cereal and some protein which has to reach them. The focus again for the common man and the weaker sections is to ensure that their businesses are supported, their education is supported, the opportunities which are available for them to skill themselves is also given enough provision. So the SC, ST, OBC, backward, general backward and other backward are all kept in mind when we plan a scheme. And this time particularly, one opportunity was fully seized, in that you all are aware that for all the schemes, whether it is the Awas Yojana, whether it is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, or whether it is the LED bulbs in streets, or for the Mudra loan, the street vendors, Swabhiman, Swalamban, each one of them, our focus is to have saturation achieved, in that every eligible person for that one particular category should be extended the facility.
Right.
And that saturation is also now taking a double drive when we say we focus on the aspirational districts, which are about 114, and in those aspirational districts, particularly for the SC, ST, OBC and the backward, we are making sure that those health indicators and also the fundamental infrastructure indicators are all reaching them. In other words, even in a well-developed state, there can be a district where the facilities have not reached as much, and even within that district, which is the aspirational district, there could be some who belong to these weaker sections who have not received any. So the focus is going to the last point and making sure that all these schemes will reach those eligible for those in those areas. So that you are aware of. Now that saturation has gone down to the level of the mandals, where we were talking about 116, 114 aspirational districts and reaching eligible population there with the schemes which are all funded by the center. We have now identified 500 blocks even further down from the districts and saying that in those blocks we will aim at saturation. In other words, the ultimate beneficiary, if he is eligible for any one scheme and if he is remaining untouched, we will reach out to him as well. So one, the scheme, all these schemes are aiming at the weaker sections, and particularly within them the SCs and STs and OBCs. Then we went with the focus of looking at aspirational districts that may remain untouched, uncomprehensively not developed. Then you looked at the blocks, then even their saturation. Even within this, one highlight of this budget, some of the primitive tribes, they may be in one or two districts. They may or may not be districts which are aspirational. But yet, because they are primitive tribes, there was this very clear feeling in the Tribal Affairs Ministry that even saturation for them may not reach as much as you would want. So specifically to saturate all such programs for the primitive groups, which may vary from one state to another. There may be one set of primitive tribes in one state, but in another state there may be just one who's primitive. So for all the primitive tribes, a separate allocation has been made in the budget, which will reach saturation in that community.
Right, and you also mentioned about the Eklavya school and strengthening that infrastructure.
Of course, Eklavya schools, over and above those which have already been established, 357, I think the number is, of tribal schools, for whom 38,000 teachers are being recruited. So that those schools which are prevalent and which will be set up in tribal districts will have the priority of 38,000 teachers being recruited and being sent to those schools. Over and above them, other than the teachers, other staff are also being recruited.
Right. Ma'am, if we talk about the vision of growth-oriented budget, capex expenditure is at the heart of it. 3 years in a row now, this is now upwards of 10 lakh crore. Your assessment of the previous years, from the pandemic year especially, when the capex expenditure was at the highlight of the budget, the manner in which it has cascaded into growth and job creation, and therefore what expectations can we have from this unprecedented high capital expenditure plan in the budget?
Since 2020-21, this emphasis on capital expenditure continues. It started then and it continues. And the incremental addition that we are making is not lesser than what it was before. 30%, 31%, 34%, that is also increasing. If I just can call the absolute numbers, it's some 3.5 lakh crores, 5.5 lakh crores, 7.5 lakh crores, 10 crores, 10 lakh crores. After the first one, every year we have also made a separate allocation for the states. So 1 lakh crore and now 1.3 lakh crores, which is being 1.30 lakh, 1.30 lakh crores, which is being given to the states as a 50-year interest-free loan which they can spend within that year. And we are not even saying for which project. Even a project which has been started by the state but which doesn't have the last mile funding, this money can be used and they can complete that project as well. So the state's participation has also been drawn in, and the rest of the amount goes to the various departments of the center. To pointedly answer that question, we have found that the appetite in the states has actually gone up, and their performance as well, in that the monies that have been given to them have also been near fully utilized. There are some of them who still have to give us utilization certificate, and after all there's one more month for 23 to end, financial year 23 to end. So there is a lot of interest in the states. Many, particularly the northeast states, have realized that they could complete many of the long pending capital projects. This has given a lot more priority for the states to see how best, other than the money which is coming from the state for projects which are anyway happening for the 10 lakh crore or in the last year for 7.5, the allotment given to them as per a finance commission's formulation has helped them to build their assets.
Right, ma'am. If you talk about the health sector, you've steered the economy through a very tumultuous period of the pandemic. We hope it is behind us. But as a policy maker, what were your key learnings, ma'am? In the sense, we look at nursing homes getting focus alongside the medical colleges in the budget. But broadly, what learnings from the pandemic do you take forward in the budget?
Even that very year, we set up at every district level an institute of testing for virology related. So that was the immediate thing. At a time when the pandemic struck us, we had only 2 centers in this country which could test samples of any viral infection which was going around. Even within that year, we increased that to about 200 of them. Now, that year also we made an announcement that we will be setting up centers for virology all over the state. Now, hospital capacities have also increased. Even without the pandemic, we have been bringing in AIMS in every state. So, very good referral hospital of the kind of All India Institute of Medical Sciences has been set up. You rightly referred to places where 157 medical colleges were established between 2014 and now. We are giving additional new but attached to that hospital which has been built, medical nursing colleges. So 157 medical colleges which have been established between 2014 and now will also host a new set of nursing colleges, so that there is a synergy. We need to build capacities, and within India the number of medical seats have also gone up, so that we have more and more doctors getting trained and coming out. We have also set up this upskilling idea, where for international recruitments we need to train our people in not just the skills but also in giving them the capacity of languages which are so important for them to be recruited for jobs elsewhere. That will also be applicable for medical and health service personnel.
Right, and ma'am, the element of jobs for youth empowerment, the manner in which the budget addresses the needs of Industry 4.0, we see skill development in AI, in coding, in robotics. How do you see these particular elements and opportunities really helping us capitalize on the demographic dividend that we have? I mean, we're soon going to be the most populated nation, the young population. How do you see these skill development programs helping us take it forward?
Not just within India but also abroad.
Certainly.
There is a clear demand for Indian youth who can help in coding, in AI, in using technology for services, and also to make sure that people who are trained in these areas are sought after, and therefore in order to ensure that they are given adequate skills, we want to provide these skilling and training of people. The reason why we want to do it is also because domestically, today in India, Industry 4.0 is something which most companies, most industrial units, most integrated plants, most newly set up units, and also the sunrise sector and the PLI supported sectors are all tech savvy in their very nature. They are all becoming, their productions are becoming tailored through a lot of technology driven processes. They too want manpower where the person seeking the job has the right skill sets. So you're not training Industry 4.0 fit youngsters, but they're all going outside. Even Indian industry, in the process of expansion, are now using technology for their own production, that they also are seeking manpower who are with these skill sets. So training them for artificial intelligence or skilling them for that, for Industry 4.0 will also serve the job requirements within India, so that they can both be eligible here and also look for jobs wherever they want.
Ma'am, one of the areas in the budget which is of particular interest to many of us, of personal direct income tax, the questions about new regime versus old regime. I remember when you were delivering the speech, there was a bit of a suspense when you mentioned about the tax rebate limit up to 7 lakhs, and you mentioned it's only for the new regime. Now, many who still are part of the old regime would argue that it did inculcate a sense of saving, and if you save, you would get exemption. So it was the cycle of saving and exemption, one would argue. And it's difficult to then look at the benefits of the new regime per se for those of us who are already for many years engaged in the old regime. How do you present the argument for the new regime in such a context, ma'am, especially saving and exemption idea?
I have a bit of a worry about the way in which we present the old scheme. Suddenly we seem to think, oh, that incentivized saving. Probably it did. But are we still in that kind of a, as they say, Bap Raj, a patronizing government behind us who will tell me what I should. I'm sorry to have to bring in a comparison which is not probably very appropriate. Today people tell us, oh, you don't tell us what we have to eat. Oh, you don't tell us what we have to do. Oh, you don't tell us what kind of value systems we'll have to impart to our children. So I've taken that a bit clearly in my head. So I don't need to say where you'll have to put your money for saving or investment. Isn't that also by logic a stretch that you can give reasonably? A person who earns his money is the best person to decide as to where he wants to put his money in. He is taking care of his family, he is running his family, he is protecting his family with insurance, with health cover. Why would we want to underestimate his capability to know where he has to actually put his money for saving? So, do I do that? Do I do things in the new regime also to give him that capacity? Yes, I do. If earlier old regime gave you incentives through exemptions to save, incentive through exemptions to insure, I am giving you an incentive in that the rate of tax for your salaries have come down. I have also brought it in that your exemptions are provided, your standard deduction is also now provided for the new regime. That's the incentive. You have more money in your hand, use it the way you want. So that's the argument. And above all, old regime, all of us would want to take the benefits of the exemption, but we'll also say, oh my God, it's so difficult to comply. You want in this day and age, digitized, I sit at home and file my own assessment forms. Yes. You have to make it simple. The new regime is all simple. It will come up with a form which is the new default form, which is the new one. You just enter it there and you are all done. But you have to say that you want to be in the old regime, which means you want to put it upon yourself that the compliance will be more strenuous, more time consuming, more rigorous. You want to make a choice.
हमारा डेजर्ट आ गया पर हमारी चैंपियन नहीं आई अब तक।
बिल भरने के पहले तो आएगी ना।
So girls, क्या हो रहा है?
बिल हो रहा है।
चल अपना कार्ड दे। पिन दे। हैं?
आरबीआई कहता है अपना पिन, ओटीपी, सीवीवी या इंटरनेट बैंकिंग पासवर्ड किसी को न दे। ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग सिर्फ अपने ही कंप्यूटर, मोबाइल और सिक्योर नेटवर्क से करें। हाँ, ये खाने की चैंपियनशिप थी क्या? आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
कब तक आप ऐसे फ्यूचर का टेंशन लेकर चलते रहेंगे? LIC के न्यू पेंशन प्लस के साथ अपनी पेंशन का प्लान बनाइए, क्योंकि ये प्लान आपके फ्यूचर के लिए मार्केट लिंक्ड वेल्थ क्रिएट करता है। और तो और इस प्लान में गारंटीड एडिशंस के साथ पेंशन पाने के कई ऑप्शंस भी हैं, सो दैट यू ग्रो यंग एंड टेंशन फ्री। LIC, हर पल आपके साथ।
If we shift the conversation to the agriculture sector, we see the budget bringing in the advantages, the strengths of digital India into agriculture. There's also an accelerator fund for agri-tech companies. We've seen many agri-tech companies coming up in the years ahead. How do you see the collective strength of these digital reforms transforming the lives of farmers ahead?
I expect, together with what is happening in the computerization of the cooperatives, the PACs are all getting computerized. There is a national e-marketing system which is already into play. We've also come up with a system through which startups can do things for value addition, and that is also going to bring in, through technology and through the startups, an advantage to the farmers so that they can choose the market, they can choose how to store it and choose the day when he wants to sell his product, rather than rush with his freshly harvested crop and not gain in terms of price that he can otherwise fetch. So by bringing in the startup, by bringing in technology for marketing and storing, by making sure the agri cooperatives are going to be multi-purpose, not only just state but multi-purpose, wherein they will be also spending money to establish storage silo, which is not tailor-made. It's not one size fits all. Each state, in fact within the state as well, the cooperatives can all decide as to what kind of storage they want for the crop which is grown in that area, and so on. So when you're doing this, and also this emphasis on millets.
Yes, I was just going to come to that.
Sri Anna. And because of that, you are able to now bring in those who grow in semi-arid areas.
We are in Telangana.
Telangana, known for growing ragi, millets, jowar. Similar North Karnataka, which was once under the earlier, Nizam's territory, where all of them were dry areas. Amravati, the southern Maharashtra, northern Karnataka, Telangana, all of them are known for growing Sri Anna. So we can now give them better price and also better value addition. The number of startups who have come into this area is amazing, and I think they will transform it. So the question of how do you think this is going to transform
for the farmers?
It is going to be transforming different aspects of farming. So I can't give you one answer of saying this will do this one. For the drones have made a big difference today for spraying the urea or the fertilizer, any other fertilizer, or even any organic pesticide which a farmer would want to use. Drones are doing efficient spraying of the whatever material far more effectively in shorter time. So many areas I've seen myself that farmers have readily gone into using them.
Ma'am, I just want to add one point to it about millets. There are many millet startups who have also come up, who are presenting millets in a more edible and popular forms. And one concern that they raise is that so over the decades, the focus that we've had on wheat and rice, the infrastructure ecosystem is suited for that. And for millets, the kind of encouragement we're giving, it also needs a parallel infrastructure which is unique to the needs of the millets farmer. So do you think this focus would also extend to creating millet-specific infrastructure, ma'am?
Well, now that we've said Sri Anna, we'll have to probably do something.
Okay, ma'am, and moving forward, green transition is a priority across the country, across the world. We've seen initial inlay for green hydrogen development, ma'am. We see electric vehicles around us. They're not very affordable as yet, though, for many, but the numbers are increasing. Your assessment of because we are transitioning for sure, but your assessment of the speed at which we are doing it, ma'am. Are you satisfied with it and the provisions that the budget makes to give it more acceleration?
Not just on hydrogen.
Not just on
green.
hydrogen, of course, on EV and batteries also.
Much more than I assess what we do in terms of green transition. World over, there is an appreciation at the pace at which India is spending time, resources, policy making, all for enabling the green transition. Look at the speed with which, and from our side, I think as a consumer we'll recognize, when per unit was available in solar power at 14 rupees, not very long time ago. Today it's come down to 2 rupees and something. That transition couldn't have happened unless enough ecosystem was developed, enough generation was happening, equipments were available, manufacturing for setting up solar or wind energy units. These were all facilitated in the last few years, and thereby the price of solar energy has come down. And similarly, today in this budget as well, for evacuating solar power which is being generated in Ladakh, we've allotted money so that that can come to say Haryana or UP, whichever is the nearest plains area, that from there we can bring it down too. So government is moving very fast in setting up infrastructure which is required once the generation happens of solar or wind or nuclear, or now with the hydrogen and green ammonia. The way in which that industry is much before it is ready to give us the supply, we are ready to receive it with the necessary infrastructure. That's the pace at which Government of India, because we need to fulfill our commitments. And also all of us are seeing the impact of climate change. Heavy landslips, unusual rains, cloud bursts, or drought in some areas. Areas which never received cyclone are all receiving it. So unless we are also readying ourselves both for receiving renewable energy, making it affordable, we really can't. I mean, I'll admit that the price of natural gas, which we thought will help quick transitioning or moving over to the fossil fuel, from the fossil fuel to renewable, suddenly when natural gas became so expensive and there were disruptions in the supply, all over the world countries have moved back to coal. India will have to take care of its population, therefore whatever we have to do in terms of coal, we will do. But at the pace at which we are moving, we are one of those few countries which are rapidly moving and transitioning into green energy.
Right, ma'am. And one final question before we have the questions from the audience members. It's not about budget. We know that gender divide, dealing with it is an ongoing process. Many in the audience and the nation look up to you as a woman achiever. But what is your side of the story, leading the high office, presenting the budget, leading the country's economy? What has been the experience been for you?
Well, it's been a very humbling experience, and what a kind of an opportunity that Honorable Prime Minister and the party has given me. I'm sometimes lost for words to say the feeling that I have, but I'm very grateful.
Right. On that note, let's now turn to our audience members for the questions that you may have for the Finance Minister. We can please request the volunteers to reach the people who want to ask a question. Ma'am, if you could identify yourself, your name, and then.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening everybody here present. Ma'am, everybody over here, I've been listening to your earlier conversation now also, that everybody is wanting reduce this, reduce that, reduce this. Always they expecting. Now, as a common man, I would like to suggest where we can take a remuneration and where we can increase our economy. In 1970s, when I was in school days, there was a saving schemes introduced for children right from the 5th class. and that credit goes to Andhra Bank, which had done that, as Sanchayika. That Sanchayika has, for some reason, has been stopped, and children were given an attractive doll-like, which was called Kiddie Bank. That really attracted lots of children in saving. They inculcated this saving habit. Until they have that saving habit from the young age, they will not attain when they go big. So I would request and suggest that can be again revoked and started in children in every schools, so that the norm in the school, children know how to do banking, how to withdraw cash, how to save their money, how to use their money with useful, any useful requirement only they should use. They will be economically using it, but at the same time, they should not be misguided and misusing the funds what they are getting from their parents. In order to secure that, I would request the parents may be kept as an SMS alert for withdrawal and deposit, so that what money is given by the parents to the youngsters does not go into wrong hands and wrong habits. That's one thing I would like to say. And the street vendors, which we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and I keep moving around and propagate on the schemes by our Honorable Minister, Prime Minister, and being a Beti Bachao Beti Padhao chairman, I have gone into lots of Anganwadi schools and many slum schools also. What I could notice here is the locking period for each street vendors, we can start off with daily finance. They are borrowing it from some local financer and paying high rate of interest. There are many people who have done suicide also. So they do, at the time of emergency, they are borrowing money from the local finances. I mean the private finances, which cost them lots of interest.
Right.
Rather than that,
the question bit,
there's the last. There's the last one,
yeah.
please.
Briefly,
Let me complete it, please.
Briefly, please. Yes.
Yeah, I would suggest 100 rupees per day from every street vendor if it is collected. It works out for 2 years locking period. Then you make it as 365 days into 2 years. It comes to 730 days. At that 730 days, amounts up to 27,000. And if government can 73,000, sorry, it works out to 73,000, which central government can also give a subsidy of 27,000, which makes it to 1 lakh per head. So a small vendor getting a 1 lakh of his own savings with an interest of 36 rupees 98 paisa per day will really add to his value for doing more of survey, more of business, and stand on his own to support his family.
Okay, ma'am. Then let's hear in from ma'am about her perspective. The first one, of course, was about the savings culture.
Yes. I've heard her. These are suggestions.
Yes.
She can further send the paper to me. I can.
Absolutely, you can share the. But do you have any thoughts about inculcating the savings culture, ma'am? Earlier, you did mention that.
Thank you so much.
What they want to do.
Thank you, ma'am.
This time, marking the 75th anniversary of India's independence, Azadi Ka, we've come up with a Mahila Bachat scheme with a assured rate of interest for 2 years saving. You start it off from now, or you even start your saving as of 31st March 2024. It's still available for 2 years.
Right.
2025, sorry, 2 years from now.
लहलहाती फसल, भरे पूरे खेत खलिहान, हर किसान का बस यही अरमान। लेकिन प्रकृति पर किसका जोर? कभी बारिश, कभी बिजली, कभी ओला, कभी सूखा, तो कभी कीट पतंग का प्रकोप कर दे नुकसान कमर तोड़।
भैया खेती में तो जोखिम रहता ही है, अब क्या करें?
अब प्रकृति का कोनो उपाय है का?
प्रकृति का तो नहीं, मगर नुकसान का उपाय है।
अच्छा?
हाँ, AIC से फसल बीमा।
फसल बीमा?
मतलब मामूली सा प्रीमियम दो
और बड़ी चिंता से मुक्ति पाओ।
AIC से अपनी जरूरत अनुसार कोई फसल बीमा चुने, जैसे प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना।
बुआई से लेके कटाई तक प्राकृतिक आपदा से सुरक्षित रहे किसान। भरपाई हो पूरी अगर फसल का हो नुकसान, जब AIC का है साथ तो ना डर ना फिक्र की बात।
एग्रीकल्चर इंश्योरेंस कंपनी ऑफ इंडिया लिमिटेड।
AIC। दीदी नौकरी लग गई।
अरे वाह, बधाई हो। तो अब तो ढेर सारी शॉपिंग।
हाँ दी, नया मोबाइल।
अरे रुको शहजादे, सैलरी से पहले खर्चे?
इंस्टेंट लोन भी तो मिलता है।
पहले बजट बनाना सीखो, फिर खर्च करो।
पर दीप,
देखो, कमाई का एक हिस्सा हमेशा बचाना चाहिए, लेकिन पार्टी देने से नहीं बचोगे तुम।
हाँ दी, पार्टी मेरी, बजट तुम्हारा।
अच्छा,
आरबीआई कहता है
सही वित्तीय बर्ताव करे आपका बचाव।
पता है लोग अक्सर मुझसे पूछते हैं कॉल सेंटर का स्टेडी जॉब क्यों छोड़ा? आई वॉन्टेड मोर आउट ऑफ लाइफ। बस मैंने अपना स्टार्टअप शुरू किया। जानना चाहोगे कैसे? देन स्टार्ट अप योर ओन बिजनेस एज एन LIC एजेंट। यहाँ सब कुछ है, ग्रेट प्रोडक्ट्स, जीरो इन्वेस्टमेंट, लीडिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड अनलिमिटेड अपॉर्चुनिटीज। तो क्या आप तैयार है LIC एजेंट बनो? अब बड़ा सोचो।
हमारी वेबसाइट पर जाएं या अपनी नजदीकी LIC शाखा से संपर्क करें।
If you can have the next question from the audience
I am
members.
Dr. G.V. Rao, economist. At the outset, it is highly commendable that in the midst of pandemic scenario, ours is the first country to come out and continue the growth path. I highly appreciate the government and especially the finance minister. My simple question is, new regime is really appreciable, which I have spoken on many platforms also, because it is giving a freedom to the people to invest the way they want to insure. Why not we make it compulsory, madam, from next academic year, in the interest of people only?
You just heard some time back I was accused of why are you not
Don't worry about that, madam.
Savings.
Sometimes a parent, when he does something, child also may not appreciate immediately. But they will know. I made one calculation as an economist. If somebody is working with the freedom, their investments over a period of time, instead of putting in ATC clutches, the whole benefit over a period of 25 years will be more than 1 crore advantage will be there for him over a period of 25 years. Whereas if they are going with a rigid way of putting only in the insurance in which they wanted, I am sorry if some insurance companies or somebody is or some chartered accountants are not happy that individuals are able to file return by themselves. But it is very good in the interest of common man and all the people of the country. Their savings on the whole will go up. New regime is an excellent regime. In course of time, please think over to make it mandatory.
The support increasing for the new regime. If you can move on to the next observation or question, please.
Namaskaram, madam. My name is Bhaskar Reddy. I am from Vaidatru Pharma. Madam, thanks for allotting pharma parks all over the country. At the same time, I have a small request. Getting skilled people, especially in chemical sector, is becoming very tough. If we can, something like a skill training center, attach it to the pharma parks will help us a lot. That is one thing. And secondary, if government can publish critical compounds or high value, high volume compounds on a common internet platform accessible to all pharma sector or chemical sector, that will help industry as well as government also to grow in this sector. That is second one. And third one, we have developed a product called beta-propiolactone that is used in vaccination, mandatory for making vaccination. We need some help to use getting approvals for this kind of products easily in our to make our self-sustain instead of importing that. First time in India we made it. We need some help in getting approvals for this. Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, would you like to add something on the pharmaceutical part? Because we also have a deliberation after the session on the pharmaceutical sectors, the manner in which you are prioritizing their concerns.
Yes, I'll do it then. I'll do it then.
Right. Okay. Sure. Go on.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ma'am. It's such an interactive session. And I'm Madhu Tyagi, National President and Director from COVI, Confederation of Women Entrepreneur. So my specific question is regarding to the women entrepreneur in the rural area, where the government has brought many schemes for their development, but what happens, it doesn't reach them. So my suggestion, it might be like you think it is not possible, but still a suggestion that as the chartered accountant, Each chartered accountant is given 20 clients. So why not one woman client also of such areas that she gets all information and what she want to do, at least some guidance. What happens? They go to the wrong people who know about it, but they don't help, or else they ask hefty amount to get through this proposal. And finally, it's a harassment to a woman in the rural area especially.
Good evening, madam. This is Jairamlu, United Nations Chief Expert, 2045. My simple question is, how the capital investment is going to manufacturing in India policy and the growth will be calculated? This is a very simple question, madam. Thank you. How the capital investment is taking towards manufacturing of the units? Number one, the differential policy is taking. The second,
we don't set up manufacturing units.
No, not government, madam. The policy towards the manufacturing of the units. The policy towards the manufacturing units and how the taking place for the growth calculation for this one.
Both
Thank you,
Make in India and also even in this budget, when we emphasized on AI, we said make in India, make AI for India also. So that and the PM Gati Shakti are all ways through which Indian manufacturing capacity is being
Definitely, madam, it is taking whenever I go to the different countries as an even United Nations, we are finding something because I am getting some answers because as an Indian, I wanted to really bring certain issues to the India. That's what my question was, madam.
Right,
Thank you.
Right. Made your point, sir. Ma'am, if we can come to you.
Honorable Madam.
Can I have this lady who's gotten up 3 times and sat down again?
Yeah,
Speak
GBK
first?
Rao.
So we'll just hear from
We'll
ma'am
have
first
this
and
lady
after
talk first.
Okay.
Ma'am, good to have you in Hyderabad, Richa from Business Line.
Yes.
And we must compliment you for the budget. You know, journalists normally are not being very kind to you, but a very confident budget it was. Ma'am, very specific question. You have elaborated on CapEx right now. You, from the center, have done your bit. Now, do you think this will crowd in private investments? And my second take, ma'am, states are not very kind as far as CapEx is concerned. You have handheld them, you have brought them, given them your bit. How do you propose to, convince them into coming out with a better CapEx plan? And I had a supplement question also, ma'am. Sorry, I don't want to keep interrupting others time and again. In your previous budget, ma'am, you had spoken about overseas bond, we trying to tap the bond indices. So we were expecting something in this budget also. So any forward movement happening there, ma'am? These were my 2 questions.
Well, the first thing about crowding in of private investments, I think there are clear movements in that because of the PLI, a lot of private sector has expanded its capacity. They're bringing in newer investments in those sunrise areas. The rapid rate at which the renewable sector is moving with the production both of solar and wind cannot happen without private sector investments. The hydrogen mission I have probably announced this time, but even last time I had a mention of it. There's already a lot of attention to hydrogen mission, ammonia, green, and investments happening in different states for these as well. So somewhere I feel when we talk about private investments, both from the point of view of increasing the existing capacity and from the point of view of establishing new capacities, we don't seem to see those investments which are happening in the sunrise sectors. Even in pharma, between 2020 and today, the interest that is expanding, and you just heard a gentleman speak about the newer areas in pharma for which he's seeking easier, better approvals. So the sunrise sectors, the PLI driven sectors that is, and also the renewable area are all now rich in many types of investments which are coming, which are also pooling in monies from abroad. That's one. So it's not as if the private sector is not coming in and the public sector capex is going up. And the second that you asked me about the states, I think in one of the answers I mentioned clearly, states are showing actually a lot of interest. Some of the states are even now asking for more than what was allotted to them as per the formula which is given by the Finance Commission for tax devolution. The same formula has been used for disbursing this as well. And interestingly, last year when I had given 1 lakh crore, we had said 80% would go unconditional and the rest 20 will go with some condition of reforms attached to it. I was surprised at states even picking up on those conditional ones, where they'll have to undertake a reform, achieve it, and then say, look, I've cleared that, so give me that money as well. Many states have come into that band as well. So states are actually moving. The first year may have been a bit doubtful in that some states did, many did not. Last year I saw many did and some others have done, but not as much as they can. This year I expect all of them, because everybody has understood the whole, the way in which it works. So states will take it up.
Right. We'll turn to some questions from journalists now. We have members of media organizations from across the
Sorry,
country.
what about? Oh. Well, if there's something, I'll always say.
Namaskar ji. I am GBK Rao, Pragati Sudhama. The biodiversity is the time of the hour, which pandemic we have seen. Instead of going allopathic medicines, we are spending so much money. Why not our traditional medicine, Ayurveda, which is very important, like Amrita Kal, that is Amrit Ahar, which is the millets, and also the instead of coffee, tea, kashayams, that herbal decoctions, instead of sugarcane sugar, that is going for the palm jaggery, and instead of refined oils, going for our Katigan, the cold press oils. In this direction, if you go, the health point of view, we are spending so much money. Why can't you go with the Amritakal budget as Amrit Ahar?
I thought the Ayush Ministry is doing that.
But still, there is a promotion is not to the extent this the 4 things which I said about the millets and herbal and sugarcane, instead of sugarcane sugar, promoting that palm jaggery and instead of refined oils or
but you made your point, sir. I think that point has been noted. If you can please
Good
have
evening,
the journalists put
good
their
evening,
questions,
madam.
Good evening,
please.
ma'am. I'm Santoshi Buddhiraju. I should first thank the Government of India. I'm an SIFS beneficiary. So I'm a manufacturing startup that is into heavy manufacturing, trenchers we manufacture. I'm an IIT graduate. Actually, in my journey, I realized in last 3 to 5 years, the government support for startups has been incredible. But yes, when it comes to manufacturing, the manufacturing is very capital intensive, and access to funding for the startups which are trying to do something in manufacturing is actually becoming very difficult. Yes, when you speak about digital, IT, any startups in those lines, it's much easier. But when it comes to manufacturing startups, it's getting tougher. So we just wanted to check if the ministry can consider encouragement of public funding, which will help individuals to invest in startups at par with the equity markets. If you guys, like I'm a Startup India seed fund vetted startup, where I know you've given us the fund, we've done some magic with that, but yes, there's a lot more magic we can do as a startup. So in such cases, what can the ministry help us to do?
Through the SIDBI fund of funds, you think that that's not addressing the issue?
Ma'am, again, there's a...
The SIDBI has a fund of funds through which they leverage the money given by the government and raise monies in the market, and through that they support startups. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, or if you've used it, you still think that is not enough.
Ma'am, when we say if it is used or not enough, we've actually not used any of that. But when it comes to heavy machinery or whatever, we want to reshape the global supply chains, which we are looking at, it requires huge intensive capitals. So for such things, how can we...
That is where we have found the NABFID, National Bank for Funding Infrastructure Development, which is the long-term monies, risk invested money, meaning the high risk money, which doesn't have a short-term return, is being funded by what is called a development bank. We have created that. NABFID is a government created developmental bank which aims at funding long-term infrastructure projects in which you probably can also fit in. Similarly, there is the National Infrastructure Investment Fund, which is also funded by the government. Even they raise money out of the public, and with the government's given money, they raise money from others as well. And they also look for projects where they think there is a future. You may want to apply to NIIF and ask them if your conditions suit them.
Right, and if you can have the questions
Thank
in
you,
brief now, our journalist friends, media fraternity, please reach out to the mic and put your questions.
I am Rajiv from the Hindu. My question is twofold. One about the criticism that the center is stifling the voice of states by imposing restrictions on their borrowing limits and other things is one. That has been a frequent criticism these days. The second one is about the cesses and surcharges. You know, our government, at least Telangana government, is on record saying, you know, out of the 41% devolution made by the 15th Finance Commission, only 29.3 or 29.4% is coming to them, because the rest of 11% is going to the center's kitty in the form of cesses and surcharges. Can you elaborate on these two?
Your first question was on
states, restrictions on states' borrowing capacities.
There is an article in the Constitution, Article 293, which very clearly says that the center will look at states' borrowing, and during the pandemic we had expanded it, and when during the pandemic we had also to borrow and give the states, we had made sure that we do a back-to-back borrowing and give to the states for the GST compensation as well. States by constitution, because you're talking, saying states are saying this. And states quote, and rightly so, I have no complaints, states quote the constitution, saying center state. The article in the constitution gives the center the right to make sure that the borrowings are kept within a certain limit, and that limit is equally applied to all states. No one state can get more and the other one can get less. None of that happens. So the overall borrowing in this country will have to be in somebody's hands, and that is provisioned in the constitution, and that's exactly what we are doing. And to say that we are restricting them from borrowing, no. You want to have over and above what has been given as borrowing limit for your state, 3%, then increased to 4% during the pandemic. So when the borrowing requirements of a state becomes far more than what has been allowed, there are voices coming saying, you can't restrict me from borrowing. So there is a very well established over the last 70 years practice of, per the constitution, center looking at the borrowing limits of the states. It is not new. It has not come in 2014. It is not something which we have changed it to the disadvantage of the states. So that's my answer to your first question. The second, would you just remind me what was the second? 1 minute. On the 41%. It's all right for me to now read up as to how many this state has got, that state has got. In the Parliament, on the cesses and surcharges, even during this budget speech discussion, I have shown how much more than what has been collected under one head of the cess, more has been dispersed to the states even under that head. So if I collect only, say, 1.5 crores, there are instances, this is not the exact number, I am giving you an example. There are instances where beyond the 1.5 crores, I have 1.5 thousand crores that I have collected, I have given up to 2,000 crores. Drawing from the consolidated fund, because that scheme for which it's been collected, because it's, let's say, education or health says, we give it. And similar is the case also with the compensation cess. So, you know, repeatedly when states come up with these charges, and repeatedly, not any random place, but in the Parliament, I have given answers, and I humbly request the media, you may ask me any number of times, I may answer any number of times. How is it that you don't refer what has been given as an answer? I assume you have not. Parliament may, this was given as a reply. Over and above this, do you still hold that charge? You should ask them. Parliament is not a, you know, a place where you can forget the answer given. It's the fundamentally primary and highest place in a democracy, elected parliamentary democracy, where I'm standing up to give the answers with the data in my hand. I would humbly request the media, post it and say, is it true? Is this answer not right?
Right.
Good evening, madam. This is Nagarjun on the side here.
Okay.
Good evening, madam. Thanks for your time. And my question is predominantly on the education system. I work as a vice president in Tech Mahindra, delivering services to
You were asking for the media, right?
Oh, we're taking the questions from media first, sir. So if you can just take the questions from our media friends.
No problem.
Finish with the...
No problem. Go ahead.
So the members of the media, if you can just reach out to the mic and put your questions. Please identify yourself, sir.
Ma'am, thank you very much. I'm Ajay from Doordarshan News. You gave us the dream of $5 trillion economy in your one of the budget. It is also translating to the state level, because many states are now eyeing for $1 trillion economy, be it Uttar Pradesh, the government of Maharashtra, government of Karnataka, government of, you know, I think, Gujarat. Ma'am, what is your message to the state governments now? Now you have presented the union budget. It is also the on the states to take forward the mantra of Amrit Kal that you have put forward. So what's your real message for the state governments for their own budget?
Well, I'm not sure whether I should give a message. But states, of course, have their plans. Many states have got their plans for export. They have their plans for inviting more investments. This particular scheme whereby one district, one product be identified. Kisan Rail, which comes to pockets of products which are grown, like bananas are grown in one particular area, coconut, any other vegetables which are looking for export market. All of them have been facilitated by the Kisan Rail. Kisan Udan, which is also picking it up for air cargo. These are also happening, benefiting states, and their policy to help their own farmers can be greatly facilitated by this. This budget has also provision for a unity mall. What is that? It means that in every state capital, or in the financial headquarters of the state, or in a tourist, a town which is known for its tourism, an Ekta mall be built, for which the center is also, through the capital 50-year loan, we are giving assistance. You build it for having stalls of your one district, one product, so that people know, oh, these are products from this state. And in that, GI tagged products also from each state. Every state in India has enough and more GI identification obtained products, artisans, materials. In that unity mall, you will keep these products and also the one district, one product stalls in that one mall, and also provide space for other states whose products can also be exhibited. So if, for instance, the tourists who come to Hyderabad will go to the Unity Mall to see products which are of Telangana, all GI tagged or one district, one product stalls, and over and above that, every other state which wants to be exhibiting their products, they can also find a place here. So at one go, you give a experience for the tourist of your own products, your own GI tagged products, and also products of the rest of the country. So there are so many ever such measures which are being taken.
Thank you very much for joining us in DD Dialogue. That's also the conclusion of this Q&A session. Let's put our hands together for the spirit of conversation, taking forward the conversations on the budget. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us for this conversation.
हो गया इंतजाम।
किसका?
गुड्डी की फीस का।
दिखा। 20,000 का लोन तुरंत। पता है कौन दे रहा है, ब्याज कितना है? लोन विनियमित संस्थानों से ही लें और कर्ज उतना जितनी जरूरत, वो भी जांच कर। हो गया इंतजाम। पगार एडवांस में भेजिए।
आरबीआई कहता है,
सही वित्तीय बर्ताव करे आपका बचाव।
कब तक आप ऐसे फ्यूचर का टेंशन लेकर चलते रहेंगे? LIC के न्यू पेंशन प्लस के साथ अपनी पेंशन का प्लान बनाइए, क्योंकि ये प्लान आपके फ्यूचर के लिए मार्केट लिंक्ड वेल्थ क्रिएट करता है। और तो और इस प्लान में गारंटीड एडिशंस के साथ पेंशन पाने के कई ऑप्शंस भी हैं, सो दैट यू ग्रो यंग एंड टेंशन फ्री। LIC, हर पल आपके साथ।
Namaskar, hello and welcome to this very special broadcast on DD India and DD Network. This is a special DD Dialogue where we are discussing, or we are going to discuss, the impact of budget on IT sector. We are here in Hyderabad and we bring you a special panelist from the IT sector. They are the masters of their own areas, own expertise, and we will benefit tremendously with the question and answer session with our audience also. So it's a open and interactive forum where we are going to put relevant questions on behalf of all of you to our esteemed panelists, and I welcome all the panelists. Mr. Gaurav Agrawal, who is sitting next left to me. He is the CFO of NTT Data Business Solutions, present in many developed nations. He is the man who has actually built up his own company 50x in just 8 years. We will try to know the secret of his success and how this can be translated into, other enterprises. Next to him is the Professor Abhishek Kathuria. He is the Professor for IT and Communications at very famous Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Thank you very much, sir, for coming and, interacting with the audience. Thank you. Next with me is the Chief Innovation Officer of Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, the company which is known for its excellence in IT software. And we are very privileged to have you, sir, as a Chief Innovation Officer, because it is the innovation which is going to be the key for the next, next phase of India's growth. Thanks very much. And we have Dr. Krishna Nagarajan, who is CEO of Couch IT. Thank you very much, sir, because you have been an entrepreneur through these years, and we'll understand from your own experience what are the challenges and what are the new things that is happening in the field of startup ecosystem, also the MSMEs, which is the big focus of this year's budget. Thanks very much, and I welcome all the audience, a very, very terrific audience out here. Thank you very much for the participation. In the first round of this discussion, I will just open this forum for an initial reaction of their own expertise. I will start with you, Mr. Agrawal. What's your general view about the budget and its impact on the IT sector? Because it is an exponential growth that you have seen. Can you please, share your views about that?
Yeah, so I think, overall budget, I would, while our honorable finance minister named it a growth budget, for me, it was a very, very resilient budget. I think the Make in India, campaign which we are kind of going on, right? I think it is now in full swing, right? In terms of supply chain, in terms of digital investments that we're trying to do, in terms of reaching the last mile, right? Our youth of the country. Specific impact, my comments on IT sector would be that I would say now India is kind of focusing on our generation in terms of skill development, right? We ourselves have kind of got into the tier 2, tier 3 sectors to kind of develop the consultants in tier 2 and tier 3, because I think we are kind of reaching a sense of saturation in metro cities. So I think the budget very much kind of gives a direction in that area in terms of the skill development program which they're kind of investing in various cities. So overall, I would say very resilient budget, right?
So the resilient is the word that you are using because you want to be Atmanirbhar in so many sectors. So that's the real core focus of this budget. Professor Kathuria, if I can ask you, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, while presenting the Amrit Kal budget, said that our vision for Amrit Kal includes a technology-driven and knowledge-based economy with strong public finance and robust financial sector. So going forward, how the technology can help actually India build a $5 trillion economy, because we are targeting $1 trillion economy from the digital India itself.
So first of all, the budget has laid the foundation for taking digital into the hinterland, right? By talking about digital public goods and digital public infrastructure in terms of agriculture. We've gone forth and built upon what we already have in terms of the JAM Trinity, in terms of UPI, and in terms of ONDC and other things that are already being done.
Yes.
So what this will enable is it will enable millions of countrymen and countrywomen to participate in the digital economy where they are, which means out in the villages, out in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where right now we are seeing green shoots of entrepreneurship happening. That will really come up in a big way once they're able to access the rest of the country. The digital market that gets opened through these infrastructures that are being put up, someone sitting in one corner of the country in a remote village will be able to sell goods and services to people in another part of the country.
So the digital public infrastructure that we have created, I think it's a unique Indian model, because the IT system, both on the hardware side and the software side, are dominated by MNCs. To name a few like Google, Meta, and Microsoft kind of companies. But now India has a model where it is creating the public infrastructure, inviting private companies to join in, and then 2 billion people are joining that infrastructure, both in the payment side, on the Aadhaar side, now on the ONDC side. So it's going to really revolutionize the way that we interact with the rest of the economy. Now coming to the innovations, what does this budget specifically give the push for the innovation, because that's the key where the Prime Minister and the FM is trying to push very hard to bring out the innovation or to push the innovations within our youth.
I've extracted 5 important things. One about the budget talks about the National Research Quad program.
Yes.
And where they are trying to bring the industries, governments, academia and startups together. That is what the quad is all about. To have a kind of a joint innovation program, and they have opened up the ICMR for academia to go and experiment and innovate. So such kind of that is a first impetus they are trying to give to boost that entire innovation model. The second important area where I strongly see is what Sir was trying to talk about, the digital public infrastructure. It's not only powering up the agri-tech, but also powering the circular economy, manufacturing, and many other industry verticals are getting that boost. That is the second. The third important area where there is a huge amount of focus is given is opening up the center of excellences in AI. And you see the 5G that is coming up, and opening up 100 different labs in the engineering institutions, and also empowering them to solve and leverage the power of 5G to solve the industry applications or industry problems is also giving a lot of innovation boost. That is the third important space to look at. And also the 30 skill centers which they are trying to open up is also helping the people to empower them on the new modern technologies like artificial intelligence, coding skills, what ma'am was saying about it, and robotics area, mechatronics area. they are all equally important to solve some of the industry problems. The fifth very important area, which again ma'am was touching about, the national data governance framework. Now this is a data bank. Now many startups which are there today, they have a problem with the data, and opening up that particular data to make it available for experimentation in an anonymous manner, it's important. While that happens, I just wanted to caution that we need to make the safeguard measures so that no one de-anonymizes that particular data. That is important. While government takes care of that, that accessibility of that particular data will really boost the startups to take advantage of it, experiment on the different data models and come up with the innovative solutions. That is the fifth area where I see a lot of innovation can happen and boost new use cases to emerge to solve the much needed problems, which were not there earlier, but with these levers, you will be able to make a tremendous impact in the growth of economy.
Absolutely. Dr. Nagarajan, your view about the budget, looking at the fact that we are focusing so much on a digital economy, and it is the technology which is at the central stage of the ease of living push or the ease of doing business push at the Prime Minister level. So where do you see going forward from here?
So being in a small business or an SME business, right? So the main area, and there's been a big push for startups, is the first realization that you can't really now, the youngsters need not have to look at the big companies for jobs. They should be now confident enough to go out and start their own companies. The required infrastructure to be able to do that, the budget is giving you a big push for it. Access to the finance, access to the data, so that when you develop some solutions, you should be able to validate access to the local infrastructure.
Yes.
So I think that is a big, and the most important thing I see is reducing the compliance requirements, making it easy for a small business to operate efficiently, because otherwise a small business has enough challenges to deal with by themselves. Right? Compliance is another major issue that they have to worry about. So e-governance has gone a long way, and the push for e-governance, we have matured, and the governance, every budget is really pushing it to make it more and more efficient and making it easy for startups to survive and thrive in this industry. So that's one big. And startup itself, the mindset of startup, we have completely changed the terrain. It's now cool to be in a startup. And I think it's really great for youngsters that whether your startup is a success or not, that's really secondary. The whole experience of going and working in a startup and trying to do something new, that transforms that group of people who come together, and they will become, wherever they go after, if the startup is successful or even if not, it is success for the country. So that's how I see it, and I see the push that the budget consistently is doing year after year.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So if I were to summarize what is the first round has been, Vineet has said that it's a resilient budget which is focusing on the Atmanirbhar Bharat or the Make in India big push. The Professor Saab is saying that the digital public infrastructure that we have created is a fantastic job that the government is doing. And next is the innovation. The Chief Innovation Officer at TCS says that it is a focus on the innovation, and the academia coming together within the industry and the startup system will actually find solutions to the grand challenges that India is facing. And lastly, Mr. Nagarajan said that the MSME and the big push for the innovation, which this budget has given, is a great example of at least a great start for this Amrit Kal budget. Now coming to the specifics, I think within the IT sector by 2025-26 we are targeting $1 trillion economy, and that's the question I would like to put to the Professor Kathuria. We are going to have 6 to 6.4 crore jobs by 2025-26. So it's given that it has a huge potential. But looking at the skill or the skill mission 4.0 that the budget has really announced, what can we really expect? Where should our youngsters look at the budget at the final points? What are the areas that we are going to expand and find the employment in?
So this is a future-focused budget. I'd like to say, programming is the poetry of the 21st century. And we've had traditionally strengths in this area. What the budget has put forth is to take those strengths and roll them out and make it more accessible to more people. So more and more youngsters will be able to not just learn how to program, but also get access to to learning in emerging technologies like IoT or artificial intelligence, machine learning. And what that's going to enable us to do is you're training people for the jobs of the future. What we have today are jobs of today, and we're training people for jobs of today. But what the target is people who will join the workforce 5 years from now. We're trying to, the budget is saying that funds are being allocated to give them skills that they will need when they come into the marketplace. And by that time, not only, you see today, the bulk of the jobs that you're talking about and the digital economy you're talking about, the bulk of it is our IT services sector.
Yeah.
But 5 years from now, we're also going to have a more robust IT product and startup ecosystem that by that time would be contributing not just in terms of jobs and valuations, but also in terms of profits and therefore value creation on a net scale.
Absolutely, and we should be proud of the fact that India is one of the 4 or 5 big countries who have its own end-to-end 5G and 4G stack that we are going to talk about, and very soon we will be having India telecom stack. At the G20 summits we have been following, the DD network has been following the G20 summits. Wherever the officials are going, they are making fantastic presentations about the India stack. I think next is the telecom stack, and the budget is now talking about the agri stack. So now my question to you, sir, from TCS, that what we have achieved on the financial payment side during the COVID, can we really achieve on the agriculture side, and what's your view on the agriculture stake going forward?
I'll just take the lead from Professor's response in the first state. Yeah. He mentioned about the digital public infrastructure. That is the real engine which is pushing the agri-tech. Because agri-tech requires a lot of knowledge exchange and interoperability across the best practices what is available. Now, payments is one area, but important thing is about knowledge sharing across the different boundaries of the regions or the states what we carry. And that is only possible when you have the ecosystem, enhanced ecosystem and extended ecosystem participate together. So with the Digital Innovation Startup Fund what is provided as part of the budget, it is really pushing the agri-tech innovators to come out and leverage technologies to drive the change. Yeah. In the initial part of the story, you heard about drones were getting leveraged for using the fertilizers and other things. Yes. That is one piece. And in fact, when I visited one of the college, Vignan University in Guntur, the college, university had a 30-acre land which is distributed into the different zones, and they were teaching students on the agriculture to leverage technology to seed the things, right from the seed planting, how the technology can enhance the entire farming. Yeah. So that is one. Not only that, but they're also trying to look at the design thinking options to innovate. Once a product is out, what do you do with the product? You only take the product and sell into the market, or do you try to bring in the different shapes, sizes, solutions which can allow you to do? Just take the tomatoes where you say that I have the tomatoes, I will only sell in the market, but no. Today, innovators are looking at, can tomatoes be used as a tomato juices, tomato cubes, many things they are trying to look at. Instead of only looking at the option of selling in the market, look at the different avatars of using the same product, shape, size, and make a big change. That's where the innovation is kicking in. Power of design thinking, power of infrastructure, power of interoperability, making a lot of changes in the entire innovation mindset. And that's where I see agri-tech innovators, agri-tech startups will keep emerging and lead the way forward.
Right. When you come into the finance, if you see our digital public infrastructure that we have created, almost 4 billion people in the world do not have their digital identity. There are 2 billion people in the world who do not have the bank account of their own. They're not linked at all. 133 out of 183 countries do not have their efficient payment system. But for all these big market to capture or benefit from, we need startups or we need the enterprises and the funds for those enterprises. So where are the funds going to come from? Because you come from the finance background, and you can tell us what the budget is saying. Where are we going to get the funds from?
Yeah, so my view is that in order for us to become a 5 trillion economy, one of the biggest focus areas has to be to convert our unorganized sector to organized sector. There is a very big portion of unorganized sector which does not get accounted anywhere. Now with this enablement of the whole digitization of payment, right, I would say that kind of becomes a portion into our organized sector. The unorganized market slowly starts getting converted to organized market, and hence, I would say that is one of the key initiatives of the government to convert, I would say, the unorganized market to the organized sector by enabling the payments, right? Everybody might not have bank accounts, but I would say even a chai wala and a sabzi wala today is open to getting paid through Paytm, right? So I would say that's a very, very strong message from the government, as well as what they have done around DigiLocker in terms of PAN, that there's going to be one identity for everyone. So I would say we are in the right direction, but fingers crossed. Let's see, how India kind of takes it up and whether we are able to adopt to this new change.
Or whether we will be able to attract the investment required for the startup sector. That was my central question. Do we have the ecosystem that will attract money?
Yeah, so I would say, just adding on to what Sir told, I think the ease of doing business in India probably needs more focus, right? So when we kind of deal with foreign investors also, one of the key concerns everybody has today is the corruption index that has not moved a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. Since the Modi government has started, the corruption index, if I'm not wrong, has just gone from 89 to 88. India is still there.
Okay.
So foreign investors still have that, I would say, doubt or little hesitation in investing in India. So while these kind of initiatives are okay, but I would say our overall legislation in terms of governance, monitoring, still has some way to go.
So you're saying that we need the reforms at the execution side.
Absolutely.
Like the economic reforms are not enough. You need administrative reforms, you need police reforms, you need judicial reforms to actually supplement that.
Just to add on that, like for example, we have e-courts, which they have kind of implemented.
Yeah, it's a huge impact. I think a contribution of 7,000 crore has been given for the e-courts, which I think we're not talking about.
My view is that I think we still have a very long way to kind of streamline our legislative system. I am from the industry.
Right.
I deal with tax authorities every day.
Every day?
I mean, probably
okay.
Yeah, kind of every day, right? Okay. So there's a long way to go, right? There's so many levels.
So that's the question I bring to Mr. Nagarajan. He's talking about the governance reform. You have seen the governance since last 20-25 years. You have seen the governance in India, in US. Are we really going into the right direction when it comes to governance reforms and ease of living? That the Prime Minister is saying that the ease of living, building infrastructure, digital transformation, digital economy is the core that we are looking forward.
Absolutely. We are going in the right direction. I have no doubt about that. So if you look at 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the number of contacts that we had to, each as a small business, we had to contact points to the government agencies, has come down absolutely to almost nil. Everything can be done online right now. And that's a huge step in the right direction. And in terms of, since we are talking about IT, we are also comfortable filling in, doing the online compliance requirements, filing the reports and everything. That's a lot more easy for startups to do that today. And but we have to go through incrementally. Like 10 years ago, though we had something, 14, 15 years ago, we had something online, they were not very efficient. But if you see in the last 3-4 years, and the kind of online systems that we have, the kind of portals that we have developed, very robust, very efficient, they are absolutely going in the right direction.
Perfect. So I think, the success of Aadhaar or the JAM Trinity that we have seen the mission called Jan Dhan Mission in 2014, and it was very surprising for us to actually see that mission rolled out. On 15th of August, Prime Minister gave a clarion call to open a bank account for at least one citizen in every family, and by December we did it. I think more than 90% of the bank accounts were open. That's and we actually understood what the mission mode is, and we are experiencing in so many sectors. My next round of discussion will be focusing on the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, because that's where from the growth is going to come from. So should I start with you, Professor? I want ISB to be in at least 4-5 states, not just in Hyderabad. I don't want to come to Hyderabad to learn management. I want an ISB kind of institute, maybe in Northeast, maybe in Bihar. Is it possible going forward?
Virtually, yes.
Oh, virtual, yeah.
That's the power of technology.
That's the power of technology. Very nice point.
You know, the institute has already tied up, for example, with the state government here in Telangana.
Yeah.
And we're delivering education content virtually to students, high schools and colleges. And going forth, I believe that's something which this budget again has laid the groundwork for, but I'm sure going forward that's something this government, the central government will want to do as well. That tap into all the talent that is there, not just in ISB, but in other institutions as well across the country. And then deliver a lot of this content virtually to all the corners of the country. Because there's some things that you can teach only in a classroom. There's some things you learn by doing. But there are other aspects that can be delivered in a virtual mode. And the silver lining to what happened in terms of the pandemic is that we've become used to consuming certain types of content and learning digitally.
Yes.
Right? And so what that does is that a lot of this knowledge that was behind these walls of sorts, or was confined in Hyderabad, for example, is now going to be available open source, interoperable, open standard across the nation.
And Budget is also talking about the National Digital Library, and I think it's going in the same direction. Sir, do you have a view on how this new world of digital economy, like the virtual avatar of metaverse we are talking about, can it be really used in health, in education, in other part, because 5G and other these kind of new emerging technologies that we are actually going to experiment with, how can we use them for ease of living as the government is focusing in Amrit Kal?
So, one word which is generally defined for such kind of a technologies is deep tech. So today, deep tech, which encompasses like Web 3.0, gamified web development, blockchain, metaverse, IoT. The combination of 5-6 such kind of a technology is really empowering the new change of use cases. And today, if we are trying to talk about metaverse, a lot of people are making non-fungible tokens as a means to generate money. And there are a lot of virtual stores are getting open, virtual real estates which are happening. In fact, companies like TCS, we are also investing in metaverse to build our own people on data center management solutions. So generally data center training takes a lot of expenses, but in the metaverse we create the data center and create the use cases and coach them how do you solve these problems in data center. So a lot of training and education happens on the metaverse. So I was trying to talk about the virtual way of teaching. A lot of metaverse related virtual labs can be created where you can literally go and experiment on certain things, and it is really helping you to promote that entire thought of thinking and bridge that digital and physical ecosystem together. And I believe strongly going forward you might be start seeing that virtual conference rooms where we four are sitting here, probably the 4 people from 4 different cities will come and sit here and do this panel. So it may be very near in the future where this particular virtual avatars will come and do the panel for you. And Ajay, you might be talking from Delhi rather than traveling to Hyderabad also. So that kind of a change is bound to come, and with the Accelerator Innovation Fund for the deep tech startups, I believe these changes will happen very, very soon.
Mr. Nagarajan,
Just to add to this point, right? So it's also, I see when he says deep tech, it's a huge opportunity for a lot of startups to get into this zone. And when you talk about healthcare and a lot of other areas, if a startup can find a solution and make it work here in India, it can work anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So that's the huge advantage we have for startups here. So I hope everybody realizes that. Right.
And with
if that problem can be solved in India, that means literally it will work flawlessly anywhere else.
Anywhere.
And
so why are you saying that? Can you please qualify?
Come again.
Why are you saying so? Can you please?
So this is a huge opportunity. This entire area of deep tech and the push that the government policies and the intent in giving this push and access to the finance is to enable a lot of startups to come in and use this technology to solve problems in India. But I see the benefit in the long term if it can be solved in India, and if startups do respond to this kind of a clarion call, right? It's going to be hugely beneficial to the rest of the world as well.
But to be realistic, do we have the bandwidth? Do we have the capacity to actually absorb these kind of new emerging technologies? Do we have the or what are the challenges do we have? Or do we actually?
There are 3 challenges. Okay. One is
you need to look at the talent first. Talent related challenges are there. There is a junior level talent, there is a senior level executive talent. Both have a different needs which need to be supported by the government. And some may say that this deep tech talent from Hyderabad are migrating to Bangalore. That is a fact as of now today. But we wanted to retain in Hyderabad. If that need to be done, then you need to ensure that there are certain things are built. It could be related to the aged parents you need to manage, your infrastructure need to be managed, or your weekend spots need to be managed. Not much of a weekend spots are available. We did a round table recently in T-Hub, where we invited 30 different deep tech startups and also academia to understand what kind of a problem is there and how we need to retain. And this is done with the support of Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Intent is to discover the problems to retain. The talent is one. The second challenge is about the compute capabilities. What you said is right. It means we need to have a scale of compute to ensure that you are able to do that deep tech startups really work. And that requires a bandwidth. Now with the 5G rollout, this is quite possible. And as we are trying to speak about 5G, there are cities or countries already working on 6G. I was working with the University of Olu and they are already having a 6G test bed and trying to roll out. And in my capacity, I work with companies like Elisa, Telia, who are operating from the European geography. They are already rolling out 6G. So while these things are happening, the bandwidth is never a situational problem. It's all about new use cases which need to be emerged. So talent, compute, and the new use cases emerging which are there, you need to have the startup funds which to promote. And that's where I say that Digital Innovation Startup Fund, which budget is trying to offer, can really address these challenges going forward.
Okay. Gaurav, your experience with the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in terms of HR, in terms of expansion, how has it been? And where do you see, going the innovation or the level of skills in these, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities from here?
Yeah, so my view, first-hand experience is that people from Tier 1 cities today look for quality of life.
Yeah.
Right, whereas Tier 2 and Tier 3 are more hungry, right, more open, more adaptable. They're willing to learn, they're ready to invest time. So I think the real source of our growth in future in India has to come from Tier 2 and Tier 3. I'm kind of convinced, right? And that's primarily because they're easy to manage. The attrition is far lower. They're more committed, they're more loyal, right? Whereas people in metro are kind of highly paid, right? The cost base is kind of going higher and higher for all companies. The more they have space in metro, right? So they're kind of going to non-metro also to reduce their cost base. So I think overall from a HR administrative cost base perspective, in every perspective, right? I would say the growth story for India hinges on Tier 2 and Tier 3 and willingness of companies to go that extra mile and invest in Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Gaurav, just one thing to add. What was the success behind your company's growth of, up to a level of 50x in just 8 years? Because why these 8 years have, what are the opportunities, what are the factors that led you to grow so much in these last 8 years?
Yeah, so I think our company, right, has a people-first culture.
Okay.
Right, so I think every decision that is made in our company by our managing director and our group focuses on people first. Right, so I think if I have to just put it in one statement, it is people first, right? So when you put people ahead of everything, right, people start earning and delivering.
That's very generic. I think every small shopkeeper will also say, I am people centric. I give my stuff to people. How can you please qualify? Because a lot of viewers from the startup community are watching this program, and they might benefit from the experiences of the enterprise like you.
So when I say people, if I have to kind of go the next level to duplicate yourself at a leadership level. So the job that maybe I was doing when we were 90 people, I don't do that today.
Okay.
So that did not happen inorganically. It had to kind of take days. Every day you have to work with your people to duplicate yourself, right? And earn their trust, ensure you give them a great growth path, ensure you give them a safe and secure working environment, and when the time like COVID comes, you don't lay them off.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that is one statement that kind of be made to them, that we are not going to lay you off no matter what. Right? So I think these are small bits and pieces where you give them a safe and secure environment over a consistent period of time. Right? I know it still sounds very generic, but that's the story. You have to do it every day, every moment, and you have to make them feel like one family.
I have a question. So yeah, I am going to open this question. Yeah, Shubhendu, please ask your question. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so especially interesting was the point about making the IT industry people-centric. How conscious are we about the issues of data and security? Because in many instances we see, a major cross-section of the population who embrace technology or apps or platforms without fully understanding the implications of it. One fine day we hear that a certain database is hacked. So the degree to which I as an individual am able to control my data, I'm not even aware of the ways in which my data could be mismanaged. So for those of us, the leaders especially who are presenting such platforms, how conscious are we of protecting the data and also informing people the manner in which they personally should also play responsibly as far as engaging with digital and 21st century technology platforms are concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhendu, for the question. I think this question was being discussed at the G20 panel in Lucknow when the top 20 leaders were discussing the cybersecurity challenges and they're trying to work out on a common framework for G20 countries to actually fight the menace of cybersecurity. But who would like to take this question from Professor Gautam? I think all of you can discuss this very important, the pressing challenge of cybersecurity, because everyone seems confronted, be it a nation, be it at the individual level, like Shubhendu is saying. So I'll start with you, Professor.
No. So here I'm going to go back to the notion of digital goods, digital public goods, and digital public infrastructure. While we think about digital public infrastructure as being something that enables connectivity, connects different parts of the market, one other important thing that it does is it makes sure that our private data does not get centralized in the hands of an individual organization and instead resides in secure vaults with the government.
Yes.
Right? So what that means is you will not hear in the news that this specific company with whom I was perhaps banking or with whom perhaps I was doing some business has had a cybersecurity attack and the data has been lost. Because as we build out this public digital infrastructure, what that will ensure is that this information does not reside at the organization level, it resides at the infrastructure level. Think about, just let me go into specifics, think about UPI, right? Your bank account details, all that information, what will they hack? They're not going to be able to come in and get that information out of your phone. They're not going to be able to come in and get that information out of the street vendor to whom you made a payment. They're not going to be able to get that information out of even your bank. Right? That information is secure to the extent that information is secure behind the firewalls installed by the central agency that protects this information. So that's one big thing. The rest is, there are valid points that you have raised, but I'll let the rest of the panel talk about the rest.
So Bala, what do you think as an enterprise, because you are dealing with a huge quantum of IT products and data also. And how to go about the security, or we should be just be relaxed about that everything is secure and we don't need to do anything?
No, you cannot assume so. There are three things which you need to focus. One is security. Security demands that you create a layers of defense. At every level, right from the app layer to the infrastructure layer, you create a lot of layers of defense so that you do not get into a situation where the security breach happens.
Okay.
That is one. The second area is about the privacy. So you try to follow certain best practices associated to the encryption techniques at a different level. The data at the rest, data on the wire, data during the processing, you ensure that the encryption techniques are taken care so that it's not easy for anyone to, again, manipulate with the data. Or try to mask some of the important information. Third, any data which is shared on a personal front, you want to ensure that you get a consensus.
Yeah.
The consensus is very, very critical and important. That need to be digitally signed by the employee or digitally signed by the stakeholder who is having the ownership of that particular data before you do it. These are the three important things. Apart from that, there is also something related to document classification, data classification, what we do. And based on the classification, whether it is confidential or public or private, that is a way you try to distribute and make it available for the consumption. And if something is confidential, you don't want to put it in the public store.
Yeah.
So these are few important practices which every organization follow. While doing so, there is also security is everybody's concern. And we normally educate everyone at the employee level about what kind of measures you need to take as a security, right from the password protection, frequent change of the passwords, the application sharing, and screen locking. All these levels of education is offered to the employees so that they don't get into a situation where something gets compromised without their attention.
Right. Mr. Nagarajan, a nation can, invest in cyber security. That's the question.
Sure.
You may like to add to him.
Maybe I'll address the elephant in the room, right? So basically, when we are developing this kind of infrastructure and public data, we are going to make sure that it is secure. So a lot of rules and policies will be put in place to make sure the data is secure. But it is nothing unique to India. Like even the developed countries are facing this problem of data security. It's not unique to us. So we need to get used to that idea, right? So and education, as he pointed out, so making people aware, make sure you know what data that you are giving out, how you are giving out, and having that kind of an antenna that can this data be misused at any point. So that awareness has to be taught, educated, and it has to be communicated on a consistent basis. And finally, a breach, if it happens, has to be dealt professionally in a transparent way, and remedies must be put in place swiftly. And we should have policies to take care of such kind of breach if it happens. Definitely that has to be in place.
I think that's very good thing that the kind of public digital infrastructure that we have created is there is no monopoly of a company, like Professor said. It is a public infrastructure and government has really invested into the security part of it also. A big company can also invest, like TCS can also make investment for the cyber security. What about MSME? Because that's the backbone of my economy. So I want to understand from you how the MSME can protect themselves from the threat of this cyber security.
Awareness, because MSME security in terms of we as a small business have enough other challenges to just survive. So security is not really the top, but it is nevertheless, it will be there as part of the process, making sure what data you are sharing and how you are sharing it, to whom you are sharing, and whether that data can be misused in any way. So it is about awareness, but it is, as an MSME, I can tell you from my personal experience, it is not something that I top of my worries. I have other worries top. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay salaries to my employees? And how am I going to get new business? So there are a lot of other things that are from my personal experience that are of higher importance. So we rely on the infrastructure, the policies that the government are, so we are going to piggyback on that to ensure that our data is secure.
जल्दी टिफिन पैक करो। राजू, मोबाइल छोड़ो।
अरे दीदी वो बैंक का नंबर चाहिए, रिफंड ही नहीं आया है। मिल गया। अब भी कॉल करता हूँ दीदी।
बिना नंबर जांचे? अक्सर जालसाज बैंक की नकली वेबसाइट और फर्जी नंबर से पैसों की धोखाधड़ी करते हैं।
तो फिर सही नंबर?
बैंक की ऑफिशियल वेबसाइट या तो कार्ड पर।
आपने तो बचा लिया दीदी।
काम से नहीं।
आरबीआई कहता है,
सही वित्तीय बर्ताव करे आपका बचाव।
Do you have questions from audience? Yeah, please.
Sir, Professor, sir, my question to you is, it's like, as a father, I'm asking this, and not only that, the 5 trillion kind of a target that as a country we have taken. It's like if you look at my son, basically attempted this engineering exam, where he competed with 14 lakh people. Eventually, the kind of the so-called meritorious seats are about 10,000. Of course, he could crack it, and he was in IIIT. But my question is predominantly on those people who missed it out. It's like Vijaykrite Vardhate Eva Nityam. When you spend it, you grow it more. From the budget policy, I heard Bala also mentioned about AI. Minister, also respected minister, also mentioned about AI centers of excellence, etc. But do you really think that we are in a position to extrapolate the kind of infrastructure that we carry, likes of IITs, IIITs, ISB, the pioneering institutions? How can that be available to those students who got the merit. For example, if you take an example of Kaivalya Vora, who is identified as the youngest, richest person who kind of invented Jepto, there is talent available. Like, how can we take that education standards to that level so that Make in India is possible because more brains are coming in and the 5 trillion is also possible. Where are we lagging? Is my question to you, Professor, because you have seen this world enough and I want to know your comments on that.
That's a grand challenge you've put, right? It's a very big problem that you've described. But let me try to break this down a little. Okay? First of all, do we have enough educational institutions? I would wager and say yes. Okay? On paper, at least, we have a lot of educational institutions. We have a lot of seats. But what we also hear a lot is that not everybody who goes through some of these institutions gets adequate skills and is employable. So what you need to do is, A, on one hand, you've got to increase the seats somehow, and B, you've got to increase the quality of education that's imparted across the wide variety of institutions that are in the country, right? For the first part, I go back to what I said earlier, which is that perhaps rather than investing only in physical infrastructure, what we need to do, and what the budget also talks about, is invest in virtual infrastructure to deliver education virtually. But that does not preclude, or that does not mean that students will be able to go through an education completely virtually. So they must still have access. So I'm talking about ideas like hybrid programs, which is where really how we'll be able to cater to this huge demand that we're looking at in terms of education. Provide a lot of education online, provide some of it physically. Now you come to the aspect of quality of education. How does that improve? That improves by doing skill training for faculty. That improves by enabling and encouraging research, both the production as well as dissemination of knowledge within the country. One thing to keep in mind is a lot of, what does research do? Research allows us to create knowledge. And when we do research that is focused in India, that is contextualized in India, we create knowledge that is unique to our country and to the challenges and the complexities and diversity of our country, right? And therefore, that knowledge is eminently more applicable here rather than importing theories from abroad. So that's what we really need to do. We need to encourage and nurture institutions to enable them to do more research and then disseminate this research out into second, third tier and fourth tiers, tertiary, secondary institutions and other kinds of institutions all across the nation. That's really how you're going to lift the tide. Right? The tide has to lift for individual boats to rise.
Do you have some more questions from the audience? If we have, or okay.
First of all, I would like to congratulate the IT industry for the contribution made by the industry to the economy for the last over 20 years. Now the industry is at the crossroads. There are several technologies that is coming up, be it big data or artificial intelligence or IoT. Many technologies are coming. On the other hand, the world is going into a recession. So as I understand, the IT industry is basically a supporting industry. It is not a main industry, or it only supports the main industry. So if the main industry goes into the recession, how it is going to survive? How the investments are going to come up for the IT industry, and what kind of support it requires from the government? Because it has made a lot of contribution to the economy, and going forward also there are promising technologies. But the only thing is, at this juncture, some support is required from the government to ensure that the industry survives, so that it will continue to contribute for the next decade. This is what my question to them.
So who would like to?
So if I understand your question right, you say that IT industry means countries are undergoing the recession. There is a lot of layoffs which are happening.
The impact of recession on IT industry and the technologies going forward, how it is going to shape up.
Understood. I'll take a start.
Yeah, please.
So first of all, fact is we need to absorb the fact that recession is there, but recession is temporary. We normally get in any kind of a growth of the industry, certain turbulence is coming in, and recession, year hit is again a small turbulence which we need to live for some temporary period. But this temporary period, whatever is getting, we just need to utilize the government budget policies, accelerator funds, which will really promote and incentivize startup economy, IT economy, and all the public infrastructure which is offered through the government channels to leverage. I agree with the fact that this turbulence will be there for some time, 6 months or 9 months, but again that we'll kick into the growth path. During this particular turbulence period, utilize that particular opportunity to improve your skills, leverage that upskilling programs or cross-skilling programs, experiment on the future innovations, experiment on the future research programs, which will really unlock new use cases for the future. At this moment of time, every enterprise is looking at what are the new use cases which will unlock and make the change. We are focusing on reducing the total cost of ownership, trying to do more work with less, trying to leverage the automation, trying to build the digital core and digitalization, which will really help to enhance our functions better, and try to minimize the cost for our customers, and also focus on the sustainability initiatives, which is trying to look at reducing the carbon footprint and other things that also brings down the cost levels. So different areas of investments which are going on still to ensure that the forward-looking cost can be controlled and new age skills can be improved to impart the things. Turbulence is temporary. We just need to live with it for some time. After that, everything is normal.
Okay. So we have come to the close of this session. Final comments, Mr. Nagarajan, going forward. How do you summarize, how do you look this budget as far as the IT sector is concerned, and are you really satisfied with the provisions?
So if I'm short answer is yes.
Please.
I'm satisfied. But if you really look at it, IT is a robust industry right now. There is nothing like the IT industry per se government is going to dole out anything specific to the IT industry. I think that era is over.
Yes.
Right. So right now the budget, the way I see it, is developing the ecosystem to support the IT industry and let it grow 10 times, which will happen from my perspective.
Vineet, your views, your final views about using digital economy for Amrit Kal. Sorry, Gaurav.
Yeah, okay,
I'm very
I
sorry.
started talking.
With them.
Yes, I think overall, as I just mentioned, it's a very resilient budget. But from my perspective, I think the government could do more for startups. Right? As I was just talking before we met was ESOPs, right? Just give an example. The tax incentives on ESOP maybe could improve, because no longer ESOPs is just not a incentivization scheme, it is a tool for startups to grow today. So I think maybe a heightened focus on startups starting next year.
Okay. But
I think IT industry is secure for sure. Yeah, so that's my final take.
I thank you all the panelists. Thank you Dr. Krishna Nagarajan, CEO, South IT, for speaking to us and putting your perspective on innovation, especially MSME and e-governance. Thank you very much. Mr. Balaprasad Padigari, Chief Innovation Officer, TCS. Thanks for your industry perspective, both on the innovation side as well as on the skilling side. That's very important. Professor Abhishek Kathuria, IT and Information Systems, ISP, thank you very much for the wonderful insight that you have put forward. And Gaurav Agrawal, CFO, Entity Data Business Solutions, thank you very much. And thank you all the audience that encouraged us for this session. Thank you very much. That's all in this special broadcast. Next will be a special discussion on the pharma sector, because that is also going to be a very key for the development of the India's next growth story.
It's another six.
रिचार्ज जल्दी रिचार्ज करा।
ये क्या किया?
मैच तो गया।
पेमेंट कैसे करेंगे?
टोकनाइज कार्ड से। टोकन? हाँ, ऑनलाइन पेमेंट के लिए आरबीआई लाए हैं टोकनाइजेशन। एक बार कार्ड डिटेल्स, ओटीपी, सीवीवी डालकर टोकन जनरेट कीजिए। कार्ड भी सुरक्षित और बार बार डिटेल्स भरने की नो झंझट। वही सुविधा अधिक सुरक्षित। ऑलराउंडर। वो की मैं। आरबीआई कहता है कि
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
बेहद खबर आ रही है।
ब्रेकिंग न्यूज की रेस से हटकर हम लेकर आते हैं आपके लिए सार्थक, सकारात्मक